If you're in the market for a cheap 4x4 ute, this is one that I would put somewhere in the top of my must-check list. It's the 2025 Mitsubishi Triton GLX. This is built as a no-nonsense workhorse. It's made to carry things, to tow things, or to go off-road. This example's got the genuine accessory bull bar on the front and the snorkel as well, and it comes fitted with Toyo Open Country all-terrain tires. Doesn't even have side steps, giving you a good breakover angle or breakover clearance, and it's got the tow bar pack at the back as well. Prices start from just over $51,000 excluding on-road costs, which makes it one of the cheapest sort of 4x4 utes that you can buy, although it's not as cheap as some of the newcomers from China. They do offer good showroom appeal, like lots of features and so on, but I would argue this is going to be a bit more reliable. It's got a longer history in Australia. You also get it with a up to 10 years warranty if you service it with Mitsubishi. Yeah, I think they've got a bit more of a proven track record than some of the new brands anyway. For this video, I'm mainly going to concentrate on the off-road capability because I want to see what it's like with the base spec four-wheel drive system. Because it's the GLX, it misses out on Mitsubishi's Super Select system. Super Select is basically, it provides a 4A style of drive mode, so you can drive on dry tarmac with four-wheel drive. This doesn't have that. It's just got 2H, 4H and 4L. No diff locks or anything like that either. I mean, 4H is kind of locking the front and rear together anyway, but we'll see how it goes without the diff locks. And yeah, no drive modes or terrain modes or anything like that. Before we go though, we'll just check out the interior. It is pretty basic in here. I do like the big pocket on the dashboard there. And you've got decent practicality, like little shelves and pockets and cup holders and so on. And I do like that these come with cloth seats. I really like cloth seats. I know leather seats, or not really leather, let's face it, they're plastic. So plastic seats, they're easy to clean, so you don't have to worry about if you're all dirty. You can just jump in there and then just wipe it clean with some spray and wipe or something like that. These breathe, so on a hot day like today, I can get in and I don't feel like my back's just going to instantly start sweating. But yeah, you can't clean them as easy as plastic style seats. Very comfortable though, very soft cushioning. It does have these side bolsters that hold you in for cornering and so on. Not over the top, but yeah, just hold you in place nicely. Got a nice perched up position as well, as per typical with 4x4 utes. Bit of a blind spot with the mirror in my sort of seating position anyway. But yeah, I can see over the top. I've got a general sense of what's going on around me. Out the back visibility is good too, although with the headrest up in the middle, it does take up a bit of space. If you've got no one sitting there, I'd probably just remove that, leave it at home. But the pillars there, the C-pillar in the corner, is not too bad. Compared with other utes, some of them are quite thick, makes it a bit harder to see that blind spot. Not much in terms of creature comforts. You don't have dual zone climate control, but I do like these toggle switches to adjust the temperature and the fan speed. Nice and easy, nice big buttons as well. But yeah, all your climate controls are down here. You don't have to go into the screen at all. I mean, you can't go into the screen for the climate. Pretty basic touchscreen. I'm not a huge fan of Mitsubishi's setup. Just grey and black mostly. Yeah, I don't know, but it's got everything there. It's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Wired, I'm pretty sure. I had my phone connected in with the USB port down there and then pulled it out and the Android Auto disappeared. I'll flash up any corrections. And then you've got a semi-digital instrument cluster. You can configure what you want to show in the middle bit, but yeah, mechanical dials on the outside, which I actually quite like. It does have a big driver monitoring camera. Best thing to do is just put duct tape over that if you want to shut it up, but otherwise you've got to turn it off through the steering wheel buttons down here. So you go into emergency assist, you can turn that off, lane keep assist, then you've got to add driver assist, scroll down, lane, driver monitoring camera, driver attention alert. And you've got to turn that off every time when you start the vehicle as per the ANCAP regulations. And then up at the back, it's not as bare bones as you might expect. Like, it's got a flip down armrest with cup holders, and you do have a 12-volt socket, but no USB ports for charging. And you've got Mitsubishi's push-through climate system. So basically it sucks air from the front and pushes it out these adjustable vents. And you do have semi-control there. So you can actually turn the fan speed up if you want to, and just pump out a bit more air if you've got kids in the back on a hot day or something like that. Then under the bonnet, we've got the Standard 2.4 litre twin turbo 4-cylinder diesel engine, 150 kilowatts, 470 Newton meters, matched to a 6-speed automatic. Power is at the class sort of benchmark, but torque is down a little bit. On some have about 500 Newton meters. I don't think it's a big issue. I think this is a relatively lightweight package for this class, and in GLX form it's probably the lightest Triton you can get. Sorry, I'm just getting my face in the sun there so you can see me and it's not too shadowy. But yeah, I think it goes okay. It provides decent power and overtaking, acceleration, all that. I'll do a quick 0 to 100 run. I won't do the full performance test, the quarter mile and all that, because I've done a few Tritons over the last year or so, but we'll try out just the 0 to 100 on the highway. The GLX offers 228 millimeters of ground clearance, but I suspect that's probably, well, it would be the lowest point, like with all measurements, but you've got so much clearance all around the body, including with this bull bar. You've got a really good approach angle, at least at the front corner. It's got a big cutaway. The approach angle is 30 degrees, which is about average. It's not, definitely not bad, but it's probably not the absolute best if you were after, you know, complete top of the range. But I think this should have no problem getting up these little hill climbs we've been doing in terms of clearance. So as usual, I'm going to start in 4H and then we'll go into low range. I'm not going to touch the stability control for now, at least. I just want to see how it goes with these 265/65 all-terrain tires, and without the diff lock or diff locks available. We'll just see how we go. I suspect it's going to spin the wheel a little bit at one of the wheels. Yep, this is a typical spot. So we've got rocking happening, compressed front left and rear right, which means unweighted the opposite wheels, and it's just, yeah, causing or allowing wheel spin to happen. Stability control is flashing, but that's now full throttle. It's not, it just doesn't have enough traction, basically. So now we'll try low range. I am starting on a hill as well. I might roll back if we don't succeed. Still having the same sort of problem, but there we go. I think the stability control or traction control is just seems to get on top of it a bit more than in 4H. Obviously the wheels are spinning a little bit slower, but you've got more torque. So anyway, it got up in 4L, and that was starting sort of halfway up as well. I'll do another run quickly just from the bottom, just to see if it was just happened to be from where I started. Okay, starting from the bottom this time, I'll keep a little bit of speed going. That's just gone into second. I might just keep it in one. I'm going to go in the sort of worst line as well. I'm not going to go in the easy line. So that's spinning a bit, but stability control or traction control is flashing, kicking up a bit of dust. But yeah, had no problem getting up. I mean, it was a bit sort of troubled in terms of wheel spin, but it still got up anyway. You just got to keep on it, keep the speed going. I mean, you could let the tires, some pressure out of the tires, get a bit more traction if you wanted to, but yeah, it's not quite as capable as the upper spec variants with differential locks and so on. Okay, coming over here, we should have no problem. This is a very steep step. You might not be able to see it on camera, but it drops right down. A lot of vehicles, especially utes that are quite long, it gets very close to the side sill or the side step. And the back wheels off the ground there. Oh, I'll just wait for the dust to settle. But yeah, it's not really close to the side sill at all. I think removing the side steps, you know, unless you need them to get in, it's kind of good because it just gives you that extra clearance, or not clearance, but just something less to snag, I guess, because you've still got the underbody, the chassis rails and all that. They're not any different, but it's just yeah, something less to snag. Okay, now we'll go up this right hand side. I reckon we're going to struggle a little bit just with wheel spin. Clearances are not going to be a problem, I don't think. But let's see how we go. I'm in first gear. Keep the momentum going a little bit. Bit of wheel spin there. Spinning, spinning, spinning. Catching. I'm just leaving my foot at about quarter throttle. And we got up there. So that was, you know, not the smoothest we've been up there, but it did eventually get up, and there was no problems with snagging the underbody at all. We'll try this little section over here because I want to see what the breakover angle is like, but I just don't know if we'll get up that far due to wheel spin. And straight away we've got wheel spin happening. Yeah, you've got to kind of wait for it to catch, and then messaging system just said caution, unsurfaced road. Well, we already know that. So it does eventually get up. It's just you've got to wait for the traction control to get on top of the wheel spin. I mean, it's better than having a traction control system that's too over the top and won't let me apply power, like we've seen with vehicles like the BYD Shark, or at least the one that I tested. So it is better than that. It's just, yeah, you kick up a bit of dirt and you've got to deal with a bit of wheel spin first. There we go. So it does rely on the traction control system. There's no fancy modes like terrain modes or anything like that, and no lockers. So it struggles more than other utes that I've taken up these up this little hill climb. But it did go up all three of the hill climbs I've been doing in the recent past. It got there, you know. I think this is a good package if you're planning to upgrade or to put a whole lot of aftermarket kit on it, because you don't have to worry about, you know, losing the fancy features that Mitsubishi has gone to lengths to develop. You can just fit your own hydraulic locker at the back or electronic locker at the back or whatever at the front as well if you want to, and you can fit your own tires and all that sort of thing. The steel rims I think come in handy. You don't have to worry about damaging them. Like alloys, they can crack or even chip or something like that, whereas steel rims, you just get another one. They're pretty cheap. So yeah, I think this is a good foundational package if you are looking to upgrade quite heavily, but as it is, I think this is a good package for someone who wants a genuine, honest, hard-working workhorse that you are going to tow, you are going to carry something heavy in the back, or do some sort of relatively serious off-roading. I mean, this is the limits, I'd guess, but if you're just doing, you know, very rough dirt roads or, you know, in muddy conditions or something like that, this would be totally fine. All right, we'll go out into the highway, just give it a quick POV on the road, and we'll do a 0 to 100 test. Actually, full disclosure, so I've just been doing some external shots and I've found a better way to get up this particular hill. You put it in low range, but go in second gear rather than first, so that way you don't have as much torque. Now, I remember speaking to the Jaguar Land Rover Australia PR dude, James, and he told me that over in the UK, they do a lot of their testing in very slippery conditions in the big Range Rovers in high range, because you don't have as much torque, and torque is not really what you need when you've got very slippery conditions. And because this doesn't come with the diff locks and all that, the wheels are able to spin really easily. So yeah, anyway, I've done a couple of runs and second gear it seems to go up a bit smoother. So I'll just show you quickly. So second, keep the speed. It still spins the wheels a bit, but not as much. Now I know obviously you could go up in high range as well, but I think this traction control system or stability control system works a bit more sort of actively in low range. That's why I've been putting it in low range. I did try it in high range and we saw it just spun the wheels straight away. Whereas in low range, it seems to just get on top of it. It understands what you're doing. I reckon it's got a slightly different program once you're in the low range. Anyway, let's go out on the road. I probably should have tried that before recording with the camera, but as you probably may have guessed, I'm not a serious 4x4 guy. I like testing vehicles, but I don't know the full nitty-gritty details of hardcore off-roading. But it does seem to make sense that in low range, you've got extra torque, or you've got more torque from the gearing, and if you've got slippery conditions, then that's going to provoke wheel spin even more. But I did want to slow the wheels down. I don't want them to be spinning too fast. That's why I selected low range. Out on the road, it's pretty good. Like it's not the most comfortable ute out there, but not many of them are that comfortable. I think this sort of sits in the middle ground somewhere. The front end is comfortable and cushy, but the rear is a little bit bouncy, but there are certainly more bouncy options in this class. With the big balloony tires, I think that helps a bit. Just provides a bit of give on sudden potholes and little bumps like this. I do like the driving position of the Triton. You can sit quite hunkered down. You've got the dashboard nicely, sitting above you. And then the steering wheel is awesome. It's got a nice 3-spoke, nice diameter as well. Just feels good behind the wheel. In terms of the handling, yeah, it's not too bad. It's about average for this style of vehicle, 4x4 pickup truck or ute, whatever you want to call it. I think it's, sitting about average. So it just comes around to that price, 51,000 or just over 51,000, excluding on roads. I think that's pretty good value for this style of vehicle, and this would be on my top 3 list if I was after a genuine workhorse. In terms of fuel economy, I'm averaging 9.6 litres per 100 kilometres. That's in the real world. With off-road testing, I think you could bump that down a little bit lower with regular use. The official rating is 7.7 litres per 100 kilometres, which is among the lowest in this class for a 4x4 diesel ute. The emissions output is also among the lowest at 203 grams. So if you're a fleet buyer or something like that, that could be useful information, or if you care about the environment for that matter. And then lastly, 0 to 100. I've got the V-Box connected up. I've got traction control turned off. I'm just going to do it in 2H. So there will be a little bit of wheel spin. You could do it in 4H without much problem, as long as you're not turning, but I just want to see what it's like just in the default mode. I'll build the engine revs up on the brake pedal as well. Air conditioning off. A little bit of wheel spin. That's 100. So it does the road does start to go uphill slightly, but it was right when we were hitting 100, so I think it should be okay. And this is just a bit of a guide anyway. And that's done 10.77, which is about average for a diesel 4x4 ute like this. That is about average. The D-Max is a little bit quicker. It's probably one of the quickest 4-cylinder diesels, and the Ford Ranger as well, with similar outputs as this. But if you want absolute speed, obviously the Raptor or something like that, or the BYD Shark is going to be more to your liking. But yeah, 10.7 is pretty average. You can check out our written review of the Triton on our website, linked in the description of this video. Thanks for watching.